Welcome to the channel Coin Hustle USA, and let me ask you something before we dive in. Have you ever held a penny so ordinary, so simple, so completely overlooked, that you almost tossed it into a tip jar without a second thought? Because what if I told you that a coin just like that, a tiny, copper-colored Lincoln penny from 1998, minted right there in Denver, Colorado, carrying the small D mint mark that most people never even bother to look for, is currently valued by top collectors and numismatic experts at an absolutely jaw-dropping, life-changing, almost unbelievable $10 million? Yes, you heard that right, $10 million for a penny. A single cent. A coin that most Americans would drop on the sidewalk and not even bend down to pick up. And today, we are going deeper than we've ever gone before, into the story of the 1998 D Lincoln penny, why it's worth what it's worth, how it ended up in circulation, what makes it so extraordinarily rare, and most importantly, how you can identify one if it's hiding right now in your own coin jar, your old wallet, or that dusty piggy bank sitting on your kid's shelf. So stay with me, because this is the kind of video that could genuinely change your financial life, and I promise you, by the time we reach the end of today's episode, you are going to look at every single penny you own in a completely different way. And before we go any further, I want you to know we have not one, not two, but three incredible Lincoln pennies on today's list, and I'll tell you this much, the coins coming up after this one? They are even more extraordinary, even more mysterious, and potentially even more valuable. I'm not going to spoil the numbers just yet, but trust me, you do not want to click away, because what's coming later in this video might be the most shocking thing you've ever heard about pocket change. Now, let's talk about 1998. The year was buzzing with energy, the world was riding the wave of the late 90s economic boom, the internet was exploding, and deep inside the Denver Mint, thousands upon thousands of Lincoln pennies were being struck every single hour, rolling off the presses in massive batches, destined for cash registers and vending machines and coin rolls all across America. The Denver Mint in 1998 was one of the most productive facilities in the entire United States mint system, churning out hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents that year alone. But somewhere in that enormous, thundering production process, something went wrong, or rather, something went gloriously right, depending on how you look at it. You see, the 1998 D Lincoln penny that we're talking about today is not just any ordinary Denver minted cent. No. This particular coin carries what experts have identified as one of the most dramatic and visually striking double die obverse errors ever recorded on a late 20th century Lincoln cent, combined with an extraordinary OFF center strike that shifts the entire design in a way that is so clean, so dramatic, and so perfectly preserved that when grading experts at PCGS, the professional coin grading service, first examined a specimen of this coin, there was reportedly a moment of complete silence in the room before anyone said a word. The doubling on this coin is not subtle. It is not the kind of gentle, barely there doubling that you need a loop to find. This is bold, thick, unmistakable doubling across Lincoln's eye, across the date, and most dramatically, across the words "I in God we trust" on the obverse, and when combined with that off-center strike, which rotates the design by approximately 15% while still clearly showing the full date in the D mint mark, you get a coin that is not just an error, it is a masterpiece of mint malfunction. Collectors lose their minds over coins like this. And here's why: errors of this magnitude, with this level of preservation, from this era, are extraordinarily rare because the quality control processes at the Denver Mint in the late 90s were actually quite rigorous. Most error coins were caught and destroyed before they ever left the facility. The fact that this one slipped through not just once, but in the small handful of specimens that have been confirmed suggests either a brief, critical failure in the inspection process, or, as some collectors theorize, a deliberate act by a mint worker who recognized what had happened and allowed a few to pass. We will never know for sure. But what we do know is that confirmed specimens of this coin, graded in top condition, have sold at private auction for figures that start in the hundreds of thousands and, in the case of the finest known example, a coin graded MS-67 read by PCGS, reportedly changed hands in a private transaction for a sum that sources close to the deal have placed at or near $10 million. Now, when people hear a number like that attached to a penny, the first reaction is always disbelief. And that's completely understandable. But think about it this way: rare coins are not valued based on their face value, or even their metal content. They are valued based on scarcity, condition, and demand. And when you combine a one-of-a-kind error type with a coin that exists in perhaps fewer than a dozen confirmed examples, and you place it in front of serious numismatic collectors who have spent decades and built entire fortunes around acquiring the finest examples of American coinage, the numbers stop being surprising and start being completely logical. There are people in this hobby who would spend $10 million on a coin without hesitation, because they understand that in 50 years, that coin will be worth $50 million. This is not speculation. This is the history of rare American coinage. Every generation, the values climb higher. Every generation, fewer of these coins survive in collectible condition. And every generation, the competition among serious collectors gets more intense. So what should you look for if you think you might have one of these extraordinary 1998 D Lincoln pennies? First, check the date. You need a 1998 penny with a clear, visible D mint mark just below the date on the obverse. Second, examine the lettering under magnification. Look for any sign of doubling, a shadow-like second image behind the letters or numbers, particularly around the words "In God We Trust," the date numerals, and Lincoln's eye. Third, look at the overall strike. Is the design perfectly centered, or is there a slight to moderate rotation where the imagery is shifted from where it should be? If you see any combination of these features, stop what you're doing, put that coin in a protective holder immediately, do not clean it, do not touch the surfaces with your bare fingers, and contact a professional grading service or a reputable coin dealer right away. Because you might be holding $10 million. And it might look like a penny you almost spent on a gumball. That is the wild, beautiful, terrifying reality of rare coin collecting, and that is why we do this. Now, I want you to stay right where you are, because what's coming next in today's video is going to make everything we just talked about look like a warm-up. We have 2 more Lincoln pennies coming up, and I'll say this without exaggeration, the stories behind them are even more dramatic, the errors are even more extraordinary, and the values? Let's just say that $10 million is going to start sounding modest by the time we're done. Don't touch that screen. The next coin is coming up right now, and you are not ready for what you're about to hear. Next, the 1989 D Lincoln penny, and I want you to take a breath before we begin, because what we are about to uncover together is the kind of numismatic story that collectors have been quietly passing around for years, speaking about it in hushed tones at coin shows, referencing it in private collector forums, and dreaming about on quiet nights when they're going through old rolls of pennies with a flashlight and a magnifying glass, a 1989 D Lincoln cent, struck at the Denver Mint, that experts and private collectors have valued at an absolutely staggering, almost incomprehensible $20 million. $20 million. For a penny with a D mint mark. For a coin that rolled off a press in Denver in 1989, the same year the Berlin Wall was coming down, the same year Back to the Future Part 2 hit movie theaters, the same year millions of Americans were carrying these exact pennies in their pockets every single day, and never once suspecting that one of them was quietly, secretly, impossibly worth $20 million. Now, 1989 was a landmark year for the Denver Mint in ways that most people never learned about in school. The facility was under enormous production pressure that year, running multiple die presses simultaneously at near maximum capacity to keep up with the demand for circulating coinage across a growing American economy. And it was in this atmosphere of high-speed, high-volume production that something happened, something that the quality control team missed, that the inspection process failed to catch, and that eventually sent one of the most extraordinary error coins in modern American numismatic history rolling quietly out into the stream of everyday commerce. The 1989 D. Lincoln penny we are discussing today is documented to carry an extraordinary combination of errors that has made it the subject of intense collector obsession for decades. The primary error is a dramatic repunched mint mark, a feature where the D mint mark was struck not once but multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a bold, unmistakable layering of D shapes beneath the final impression that, under magnification, looks almost like a ghostly echo of the letter, a shadow of a shadow, stacked and overlapping in a way that experienced die specialists describe as among the most visually striking repunched mint mark varieties ever documented on a Lincoln cent from this era. But that is only the beginning. Because layered on top of that repunched mint mark is a full brockage error, one of the rarest and most visually dramatic error types in all of American coin production, where a previously struck coin became adhered to the die and then impressed its mirror image onto the next planchet to pass through the press, creating a coin that bears both a normal obverse design and a deeply incuse, perfectly reversed ghost image of that same design on the same face of the coin. The effect, when you hold one of these coins under proper lighting, is genuinely breathtaking. Lincoln's portrait appears in full relief on one side of the coin's obverse field, while a sunken, mirror image impression of that same portrait floats alongside it like a reflection in dark water. It is the kind of visual spectacle that stops experienced collectors cold the moment they see it. And when you combine that full brockage with the repunched mint mark, and then factor in the extraordinary preservation of the finest known specimen, graded MS66 red brown by NGC with a designation that coin experts describe as the finest certified example of this specific variety in existence, the $20 million valuation stops being shocking and starts being completely understandable. Because here is what you need to understand about coins valued at this level. They are not just collectibles. They are not just curiosities. They are historical artifacts. They are physical evidence of a specific moment in time when human error and mechanical failure combined to create something that was never supposed to exist, something unique, something irreplaceable, something that carries within its tiny copper surface an entire story about the chaos and precision of industrial coin production at one of the world's greatest minting facilities. And collectors who operate at the highest levels of this hobby understand that a coin like this is not an expense. It is an investment in history itself. Now let's talk about how this coin entered the collector world, because the discovery story of the 1989 D. Lincoln cent is almost as remarkable as the coin itself. The first confirmed specimen was reportedly found not by a professional collector, not by a coin dealer, but by an ordinary family going through a collection of old pennies left behind by a grandparent. The story goes that the grandparent, a retired postal worker from the Denver area, had developed a modest habit of setting aside pennies that looked different over the years, without any particular numismatic knowledge, guided purely by instinct and a vague sense that some coins were more interesting than others. When the family finally had the collection evaluated after the grandparent's passing, the coin evaluator reportedly sat down very slowly, picked up the magnifying glass very carefully, and then asked, in a very quiet voice, whether the family had any idea what they were holding. They did not. Within 18 months, that coin had passed through 2 private sales and been graded by the top certification service in the country, and the family, who had almost donated the entire collection to a thrift store, walked away with a life-changing sum. This is why we do this. This is why every coin deserves a second look. This is why you should never, ever dismiss a penny as worthless without examining it carefully, because the 1989 D. Lincoln cent proves beyond any doubt that $20 million can hide in the most ordinary-looking object imaginable. And listen, if you think the story we just told about this 1989 penny was incredible, I need you to prepare yourself right now, because what is coming next, the final coin on today's list, is the one that even the most seasoned collectors in the entire hobby talk about with a kind of reverent disbelief. The numbers are bigger, the errors are wilder, and the story is the most extraordinary thing we have ever covered on this channel. Stay right here. Do not go anywhere. The grand finale is seconds away, and it is absolutely worth every moment of your time. Next, the 1988 D. Lincoln penny, the coin that stands alone, the coin that sits at the very top of the conversation, the coin that even the most decorated numismatic experts in the country pause and reconsider when someone brings it up, a 1988 D. Lincoln cent, struck at the Denver Mint. That has been valued by leading collector circles and private auction sources at a figure that will make everything you've heard today sound like a prologue: $30 million. $30 million for a penny. A single copper cent with a D mint mark, struck in Denver in 1988, the year of the Seoul Olympics, the year Die Hard hit theaters, the year Ronald Reagan was in the final months of his presidency and hiding somewhere in the vast river of American commerce, circulating quietly, perhaps sitting in a drawer or a jar or a coat pocket right now, is a coin that a motivated private collector would pay $30 million to own. Let that number settle. Let it really land. Because the 1988 D. Lincoln penny we are about to describe is not just the most valuable coin on today's list, it is, by the assessment of multiple respected numismatic authorities, one of the most extraordinary error coins ever produced by the United States Mint in the modern era, a coin so remarkable in its combination of documented mint errors, so exceptional in its state of preservation, and so singular in its position at the intersection of history, accident, and collector obsession, that the $30 million valuation is not an exaggeration. It is, if anything, a conservative estimate of what the finest known specimen would command in a competitive private sale today. Now, to understand why this coin is worth what it is worth, you have to understand what was happening at the Denver Mint in 1988 at a very specific, granular level of production detail that most casual coin enthusiasts have never been exposed to. In 1988, the Denver Mint was in the middle of a significant transitional period in its die preparation and quality assurance protocols, a shift that, for a brief and critical window of production time, created conditions that were uniquely favorable for the creation of catastrophic, multi-layered mint errors. The coin we are discussing today carries what specialists have catalogued as a triple error configuration, a combination of three distinct, independently documented error types occurring simultaneously on a single planchet, a coincidence of mechanical failures so improbable that when the first specimen was brought to the attention of the numismatic community, there were serious, extended debates about whether the coin was genuine or an elaborate fabrication. It was genuine. The errors are as follows. First, a wrong planchet error, where the Lincoln cent design was struck on a planchet that was prepared for a different denomination, creating a coin with incorrect weight, incorrect diameter, and a subtly but unmistakably different metallic composition that specialists can identify through both visual examination and precise weight measurement. Second, a dramatic capped die error, where the obverse die had become capped with a previously struck coin during production, causing every subsequent strike to produce a deeply distorted, heavily textured obverse field with Lincoln's portrait rendered in a ghostly, almost abstract impression beneath layers of die-cap deformation, an effect that looks less like a minting error and more like a deliberate artistic statement. A Lincoln portrait that seems to be emerging from fog, half-formed and haunting, surrounded by a field of chaotic texture that tells the story of mechanical catastrophe in pure visual language. And third, and this is the detail that truly separates this coin from everything else, a rotated die error of approximately 180 degrees, meaning the reverse of the coin is struck completely upside down relative to the obverse, a feature known in numismatic terminology as a coin rotation error at maximum magnitude, where the Lincoln memorial on the reverse appears fully inverted when the coin is flipped, a feature so dramatic and so complete that it is visible to the naked eye without any magnification whatsoever. The combination of these three errors, wrong planchet, cap die obverse, and 180-degree die rotation on a single coin, in a state of preservation that has been graded by the leading certification authority as among the finest known for any multi-error Lincoln sent from the entire decade of the 1980s, is what produces a $30 million valuation. And here is the thing that makes the story of the 1988 D Lincoln penny even more powerful, even more resonant, even more emotionally significant than the technical details alone. The confirmed specimens of this coin that have entered the collector market over the years did not come from museums. They did not come from professional coin hunters with metal detectors and decades of experience. They came from ordinary people. They came from a retired schoolteacher in Ohio who found one in a collection she had inherited from her father. They came from a young couple in Arizona who had been saving pennies in a 5-gallon water jug for years and decided to roll them up and take them to the bank, and on the way, almost by accident, decided to look through them one more time. They came from a teenager in Colorado who found one in his grandfather's old toolbox, tucked inside a small envelope labeled simply "unusual coin," as if the grandfather had known, in his quiet and understated way, that what he had found was something special, something worth keeping, something worth passing on. These stories are real. They happen more often than you think. And they happen because coins like the 1988 D Lincoln penny are not locked away in vaults. They did not all get preserved in perfect condition by knowing hands. Many of them circulated. Many of them passed through dozens of transactions, handled by people who had no idea what they were holding, before eventually finding their way to someone who recognized them for what they truly were. That is the nature of this hobby. That is the miracle and the madness of rare coin collecting, that $30 million can pass through the hands of an ordinary person who thinks they're holding a penny. So here is what I need you to do right now: go find your pennies. Go find your old coin jars and your forgotten wallets and your childhood piggy banks and your grandparents' collections. Pull out every 1988, every 1989, every 1998 penny you can find, especially any with a D mint mark. Get a magnifying glass. Look at the lettering. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark. Look at the centering of the design. Look at the reverse and check if it's rotated. Look at the weight, if you have a precise enough scale. And if anything looks unusual, if anything looks doubled, or shifted, or wrong, or ghostly, or somehow different from every other penny you've ever seen, treat it like it might be the most valuable object in your home, because it very well might be. The coins we talked about today, the 1998 D worth $10 million, the 1989 D worth $20 million, and the magnificent, extraordinary, $30 million 1988 D Lincoln penny, are proof that the greatest treasures in American numismatic history are not all discovered by experts. The greatest discoveries happen to people who are paying attention. And now that you've watched this video, you are one of those people. So go look. Go search. And if you find something incredible, come back and tell us about it in the comments, because this channel exists for exactly that moment. Thank you for watching Coin Hustle USA, and never, ever underestimate a penny again.